staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing out there? Hope everyone's having a good Wednesday. Welcome. It is Pushing the Limits, PTL Nation on the YouTube Super Chat, of course. We're on TikTok. We're on Twitch. The website's pushingthelimits.live. And we appreciate you guys for joining us. Leonard Cardinal is going to be joining us a little bit later in the show after we played this interview. But we got a lot to get to, a lot to talk about today. We'll get to my Lydia Monahan interview here in just a moment. But certainly with Colbert, we're certainly going to be getting to that. Caroline Leavitt just held a press conference. We're going to talk a little bit about that. There's so much to get to today. I don't even know where to begin. However, I did promise you guys that we would have Lydia Monahan on the program. She is from the New York Post. She's on CNN, it seems like now, on a weekly basis. She is a Trump supporter. She is a staunch conservative, and I've been wanting to get her on the program. Luckily, I was able to get her on earlier today and pre-record the interview, but I promised you guys that I would play it for you. This was an interview from earlier today. We touched on a lot of different issues. We talked about ICE. We talked about why I believe Donald Trump is a racist, and it seems as though Lydia defends Donald Trump. We talked about alleged election fraud and a lot of other topics. And from the beginning to the end of the interview, I will say this: she started to get a little bit annoyed with me. Par for the course with being women. What can I say? But in all seriousness, I want to play you the entire interview. I'm not going to stop it. We're not going to comment in the middle of it. This is my entire interview with New York Post's very own Lydia Monahan, and then we will discuss it after. Here it is. All right. Hey, everybody. My guest joining me right now, you've seen her everywhere. Fox News, CNN. She's all over the place. And I love it when she does CNN because it ruffles feathers and it gets people talking. She is Lydia Monahan from the New York Post, and we're very happy to have her on the show today. Lydia, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. A little tired, a little worse for the wear being here in New York City, where the snow is melting, but the taxes are going up.
I used to live in Connecticut. I do not miss the weather. I'm in Las Vegas right now, and I love the weather here. Not to make you jealous, it's like 65 degrees here in Vegas today. So I agree with you on a lot of topics. I disagree with you on a lot of topics, but it makes for good conversation. And I want to talk about maybe some of the topics that you've brought up on CNN over the course of the last couple weeks, if that's okay, Lydia. I want to start, thank you. I want to start with the Obama monkey video, for lack of a better term, that Donald Trump retweeted.
Oh,
You understand and you agree why people were offended by that, though. You agree that it was a mistake at a minimum?
Yeah, totally a self-inflicted wound. I mean, this is why pretty much every politician and CEO, unless you're a very unique character, they just pass off communications to somebody else because these errors are so preventable. There's no reason that needed to happen.
Mm-hmm. So obviously I agree with that. When you spoke about this on CNN and some people were calling Trump racist, and again, this is where we probably disagree. I do believe Donald Trump has a history. If this was a one-off and it was just a mistake, as you said, then I would say, okay, it was probably a mistake and inappropriate and wrong. But when you look at his history with the Central Park Five and go back to your S-hole countries, and I don't want black people counting my money in my casinos. And when you look at his history and the thousands of discrimination lawsuits, Lydia, can you understand why some people like myself would say, yes, I do believe he's racist?
So you believe that a majority of Americans twice voted for a racist?
I think there's a lot of Americans. I'll give you my answer. Half of Republicans think Trump won the 2020 election. So, which obviously he didn't. I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying you're like this, but I think a lot of people today still that support him are ill-informed. They don't have facts. They don't know his history. There's also a small percentage of people that, let's be honest, that are racist. I'm not saying the majority that voted for him are racist. I would never make that claim or put Trump supporters in one group. I don't like it when people do that. But I think there's a lot of reasons why they voted for him. But when you look at his poll numbers now, I mean, this was a guy before he won in 2016 that had the birther issue with Obama, which I thought, obviously, I would assume you didn't agree with that.
For 5 years, he said Obama wasn't born in this country. Look at all the people that still voted for him. So I guess that's the best way I would answer that.
That's interesting. Look, I mean, to be candid, not that I'm super young, but a lot of the things that you referenced are kind of before my time.
Right.
And based on just sort of prima facie, that sounds really horrible. I think you have to look at what has he done for the African-American community. I can point to a number of different things. And I can also point to the fact that for the first time in decades, he got a really remarkable, I think 24% of Black men who voted for him. And so one, I don't think that a majority of Americans voted or would support a racist. And I also think his policies are actually helping African Americans and, of course, people across the board. He, dedicated significant funds to support HBCUs. He's supported investing in economic opportunity zones that impact and help a lot of African Americans. So I would look at his policies and his support. And to be honest, I really can't speak to what he may have done or didn't do during the 90s. Again, based on what you just shared, that sounds bad. And I'm totally willing to accept that. But I also think we're here in 2026 and a lot of African Americans, an overwhelming number, more who voted for him than have voted for McCain, Romney, George Bush, HW, really anyone in decades, they support him. And I think I'm certainly wouldn't say that none of his policies haven't helped minorities. I would never make that claim. At the same time, I would also say I don't think giving the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%, $100 billion, necessarily helps minorities. I don't think what's happening, and I wanted to get to the next topic, Lydia, which of course is ICE, which I think can kind of tear into the minority aspect of it. What would you make of what's taking place in Minneapolis? I know you're on the record on CNN as saying what happened to Alex Preddy is awful. What happened to Renee Good is awful. I think any decent person would say that, and we can get into the what happened and all that stuff. But when you see ICE agents going up to people that have accents and brown people and asking them for their papers with no reasonable or articulable suspicion that they've committed a crime, that's certainly not good for minorities. And I can't imagine that you're okay with that aspect of this. If that has happened, that's not in accordance with the law. Like, there's very strict laws to prevent racial profiling. So maybe that's happened. There's a ton of ICE officers now on the street who they've trained. And even, as we saw, DHS pointed this out, that certain officers misled the agency about an incident that had happened in Minneapolis in January. So I'm not going to say that every single ICE officer is 100% perfect. That would be kind of ridiculous. But I think the vast majority of them are doing a great job under almost impossible circumstances. And I also think it's important to know, I mean, you look at Hispanics, 24% of ICE officers are Hispanic. I believe 17% are African American. So this isn't just like a monolithic white group of agents going after brown people at all. This is a diverse group of people who are trying to enforce immigration law. I truly am baffled. Every other country is fine enforcing their immigration laws, right? Australia, I was just having a conversation with somebody about this morning. He's had employees who wanted to come work for, they were deported. They were literally kicked out of Australia. Every other country is allowed to enforce their immigration laws except for the US. I refuse to accept this narrative that somehow enforcing laws that have been on the books for decades is harmful or racist.
I think what's harmful or racist is, like I said, taking away someone's Fourth Amendment's right. I think what's harmful is a lack of de-escalation. I think you referenced one incident where you remember the story where a woman, and Omar Jimenez at CNN did a great job in talking about this. Woman was shot 5 times. You saw this video. They tried to prosecute this woman. Everyone in DHS, Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, Bovano were congratulating this guy who I believe it's attempted murder. We saw the video of him ramming into her car. She wasn't boxing anybody in. She certainly wasn't a terrorist. And you had everybody congratulating this guy without even knowing what took place. Alex Preddy, I know we're going to disagree on this, but he's not an assassin. Stephen Miller called him an assassin. An hour after the Renee Good shooting, Kristi Noem called her a domestic terrorist. We can agree to disagree on maybe whose fault it was, But can you agree with me, at a minimum, it's beyond irresponsible for what Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and members of Trump's administration are doing literally hours after these shootings take place?
Well, one, I would like to note too, they've implemented new policies that require everyone to wear body cams. So hopefully these incidences that we've seen happen don't happen again. Look, I understand the knee-jerk reaction where for a year now, there's chants in New York City, kill an ICE, save a life. There's calls to hang Kristi Noem. This has been,
which is horrible. That's horrible.
A recurring thing that we've heard on the left. And so I can understand anytime there's an incident, why their knee-jerk reaction would be to say that. I think Tom Homan is doing a great job. He's trying to de-escalate. I think he was wise, said, look, I'm going to let the investigation play out before I comment on this. And I think it's always wise to wait and be more strategic with the language. So I think there's a reason that he's sort of unofficially been elevated while other folks are sort of getting taken down a peg. But yeah, look, I just think the reality on the ground is that you have, especially in Minnesota, and this now isn't as much of an issue because they're sort of redeploying to more red states, people, elected officials telling people, put your body in the line. And the immediate reports about this was basically, it was just a mom driving her kids to school, at least in the case of Renee Good, and she got murdered by an ICE officer. The characterization of what happened is just completely off. There is a intentional and an organized effort. It also involves some folks in Tim Walz's administration there trying to undermine federal law enforcement. That's unacceptable. There's also new reporting about CCP billionaires basically subsidizing some of the organizations that are involved in organizing these protests. So there is a concerted effort from the left to undermine what ICE officers are trying to do. And we've never seen that before. And that's an almost impossible Herculean effort to try and operate in those kind of environments.
Would you also say, though, that this is also happening on the right? If you're mentioning Renee Good, Kristi Noem calling her a domestic terrorist an hour after the shooting, you have this guy, Officer Ross. To my knowledge, there hasn't been a full investigation as to ballistics or an autopsy. I've interviewed people that were 20 feet away. They haven't been interviewed by the FBI. They basically deemed her a domestic terrorist. Let's just say for a moment she was impeding an investigation. Now, listen, Lydia, I wish she got out of the car. I really do. But we know that these officers broke proper protocols. Example, where does it say an officer should be allowed to carry a camera, cell phone in one hand, walk to the back of the vehicle, walk to the front of the vehicle, stop in front of the vehicle? You have another officer that's not even trying to engage. He says, get the F out, and pulls on the door. And then after the shooting, forget about what Officer Ross even called her seconds after the shooting. He walks over to her, doesn't check her pulse, doesn't try any life-saving care, casually walks back to his unmarked vehicle, putting his mask up, and leaves the scene of an officer-involved shooting. So at a minimum, there are plenty of protocols that are broken. And then we're led to believe that he had internal bleeding with no evidence. Two unnamed sources, apparently, that told CBS. We don't have any medical records. We don't have any pictures. We do have Officer Ross carrying some of the stuff out of his home the next day. There's video of that. So I think it could go both ways. I'm not saying Renee Good did everything right that day. I wish she got out of the car. She'd probably still be alive today. However, I look at these officers that are supposed to be professionals, and I look at all the mistakes that they made, and I want a full independent investigation, and we know that that's not happening.
Yeah, I think the truth merits inspection. I think investigations will absolutely help. I would like to see more clarity about what happened that day. I think that's a very reasonable thing to want to have happen.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Obama days, when he gave Tom Homan a medal, would you agree with me? I don't recall any videos of people being executed in the streets. I don't recall ICE agents not using warrants and kicking down doors to find undocumented immigrants that may or may not be criminals.
Okay,
I don't recall it.
I would disagree with your characterization of execution. She hit an officer with her car. It's not like they're randomly going on the street and shooting at people. These are people who are putting themselves in very precarious situations. But the bottom line is with Obama, America as a whole was comfortable and okay enforcing immigration law under him. The only reason that these incidents have happened is because of elected officials, organizers creating this chaos and these horrible situations. If you look at Texas, Florida, all of these states have been able to work with ICE officers, make sure that everyone is safe, deport 10 times the number of people that we saw in Minneapolis, and it's all working smoothly. So the bottom line is the only reason there's an issue is because you have a concerted effort to undermine what ICE officers are trying to do. That's the reason that there are issues in Minneapolis. There aren't issues in Texas, in Florida, in any other state right now, because those states and their law enforcement are cooperating with ICE and able to make sure that everyone's safe. When, prisons, whatever, they hand over any illegal immigrants to ICE. There's a way of doing things that keeps people safe. Most state governments are happy to take that approach. And Tim Walz, I would argue, seems to want chaos. Jacob Fry.
Why would you say
chaos.
that?
He says F ICE.
Why would you say he wants chaos, though?
Look at
Has he ever?
Said, put your. I mean, he's eating this up. There was a conversation about fraud until everything shifted, and now it became about immigration. He's not running for re-election because there are questions about what his involvement was in this massive fraud, and the narrative changed. Now he's not talking about that at all. He's talking about ICE and immigration enforcement, and this is a civil war moment. So he's been able to completely shift the narrative to make people forget about the fact that he may have been, we don't know. We just don't know at this point. The investigation is still playing out. We're still getting information.
Yeah, I don't think Frey or Walz, this is, I guess, the part where I would disagree with you. I don't think Frey or Walz.
Why would you say F ICE if you just want everyone to have an orderly?
Well, I'll answer that, but I would say to the contrary. Why would you call for 6 Democrats to be hung and executed? That's what Donald Trump did. I would assume you support Donald Trump. Donald Trump, a month and a half ago, called on hanging 6 Democrats, executing them, all because the only thing that they said was don't abide by an illegal order. So I want consistency. Obviously, I didn't agree with that. I thought that was awful. I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for a governor to say F ICE. Okay, I'll agree with you on that. I think he's reacting on emotion. But at the same time, you have the president of the United States calling on the hangings of 6 Democrats. Would you also agree with me that that's awful and he shouldn't have done that? And that can also incite violence? We already had
this conversation about sort of style versus substance. I think America would be best served if Donald Trump didn't post on social media. I think that would resolve so many issues.
I mean, I certainly agree with you, but I think F ICE, while I'll grant you maybe that's not the right terminology and you're reacting on emotion, I think when the president of the United States is calling for the execution of 6 elected officials, in my opinion, I think that's far worse. Is it not?
I just said I don't think I don't want to see Trump on social media. I'm concurring with you.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. If you're just joining us, she is Lydia Monahan from the New York Post. You see her on CNN. I love it when she battles with Abby Phillips. Although I will say that there's probably a few too many people on the panel because there's too much talking over one another. I like these one-on-one conversations. Certainly a lot better. You've had some very serious conversations about illegals who are voting and voter fraud. I think it's a good conversation to have in the few minutes we have left here, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You'll agree with me that Trump lost the 2020 election, free and fair election. Is that fair? Can we start there?
Sure.
Okay, good. Because I think that's important because like half Republicans don't even think Donald Trump lost the election. How many illegals?
I would say is I think there's frustration with the fact that year there was so many changes to the way that various states, normally the state legislature, has to make changes to the way that an election is done in their state. And there were all kinds of moves to change the way that elections were done. And that wasn't basically done the proper way. So I think there's a frustration that things were changed in a way that wasn't helpful to sort of safe and secure elections. And I would say, I mean, I grew up in a state that had mail-in ballots, so it's something I'm very comfortable with. But I think there's more, anytime you have mail, I mean, there's just more room for potential issues there. So
Trump told you guys not to do that, though, right? I mean, back in 2020, he was against mail-in balloting, and he said he didn't want Republicans who were going to vote for him to do mail-in ballots, and yet he's mail-in balloted himself a number of times. But I guess the question that I would ask you, if we're talking about voting, and yes, I want fair elections. I don't even have a problem, by the way, with voter ID. We probably agree on that. But at the same time, do you think January 6th happens if Donald Trump doesn't lie about the 2020 election? Does that day even happen if he just does what every other president should do and have done, which is concede?
I don't know. This is a very hypothetical circumstance.
So you think there's a chance that January 6th still might have happened, even if Donald Trump didn't say the election was rigged and the Democrats cheated? You still think people would have stormed the Capitol and would have been chanting "Hang Mike Pence" and try to decertify or not allow the certification of elections if Donald Trump conceded?
In an alternate universe, I have no idea what would have happened.
Okay. Let's talk about illegals that vote. You've talked about this on CNN. Can you point to a time in our history where, because of undocumented immigrants that were fraudulently voting, it changed an election result? Has that ever happened? Because I'm not aware of it. Maybe
how much fraud are you comfortable with in an election?
Well, obviously, I don't want any fraud happening, but as we know, it's impossible to catch everything. There's going to be fraud, a level of fraud, right, Lydia, in every election, unfortunately. But I don't think this is a huge issue because it hasn't changed any elections in our lifetime. And if it hasn't changed any elections in our lifetime, I don't consider it to be a huge issue. I think a fake electorate scheme is a huge issue. I think what happened on January 6th is a huge issue. I think the president of the United States still not conceding an election is an attack on our democracy. And I consider all those issues far more prevalent than 60 or 70 people that might have voted illegally, which, by the way, I don't want happening. I'm with you on that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think there should be any election fraud. I want safe and secure elections. And I think hopefully we can all agree that that's something that we should be focused on moving forward. Also, I have something like.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I just wanted to say I do appreciate you coming on. I do enjoy these conversations, and I do enjoy it when you're willing to go on CNN and you're going to get into it with people that you disagree with. I respect anybody that's willing to have these conversations.
Yeah,
I think as Americans, we need to have more.
They do a great job facilitating.
Yeah.
A conversation with all.
It's good conversations. I know you got to go, Lydia. I really do appreciate your time. I hope we can do this again down the road. And I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. There you go. Little one-on-one with Lydia Monahan there. As I introduce the man, the myth, the legend, the 25-year lieutenant who now Andrew Wilson calls you by name, Leonard Cardinale. Joining me in studio with reaction. Now, obviously, I have a lot of things I want to say too, but I want to, first of all, thank you for being here. What was your first reaction to that 20-minute interview I did earlier?
It was embarrassing because she's totally unprepared. And then she talks about, you and I know our U.S. history, our American history, even our world history. And to be a pundit and to talk about politics, you're supposed to be educated. Yeah. And if you're not educated, you're supposed to educate yourself. And so many Trumpers and so many MAGA come on your show and go, I didn't know about it. It's a major world event. And she's like, oh, yeah, that was before my time. Well, you know what? Slavery was before my time, too. But I can tell you in detail all about it.
I was going to make that point. So a couple quick points. And I agree with what you just said. That was the first point I wanted to make. She was on CNN the other day, or last week and the other day, when the whole Obama comparing to monkeys thing. I can't even believe I have to even say that. It's so repulsive. But after that whole thing came out, there were people on CNN that were saying what I was saying, which was that, yeah, Trump's a racist. This shouldn't be a surprise, right? And she was saying, well, then why would so many people vote for a racist? And she was defending him, basically making the case he's not a racist. So I gave her some facts dating years back. By the way, I wasn't even alive, or if I was a baby when this happened in the early to mid 80s, or even the Central Park.
It started
5.
in 79.
Or what about the birther issue?
The racist accusation started in about 79, 80.
Right. So I brought up all those issues and I gave her a little bit of context as to why I believe he's a racist. And her response was, well, I wasn't alive then. I wasn't alive during Nazi Germany during the Holocaust, but I can tell you Adolf Hitler was a murderer, right? I wasn't alive back in the days, when we had all these evil, murderous dictators that did some horrible things. Mikhail Gorbachev, like I wasn't around during the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King. Does that mean I can't praise Martin Luther King Jr. for being a civil
It
rights
was
leader.
it was an embarrassing
Yeah,
moment for
so that
her. I
was-
think she's going to go study.
So that was one issue that I was kind of surprised in. There were a few. And she said that there are no other issues when it comes to ICE outside of Minneapolis. Do you remember when she said that?
Well, she also said, which
Do
is
you remember
inaccurate, that several states had it better and it worked, and that is not true. She
Well,
named Texas and Florida. That is not
that's
true. That's inaccurate.
That's another good point. But when she said there's no other incidents, a few minutes earlier, I brought up this woman, Martinez, who was shot 5 times. That didn't happen in Minneapolis. It happened in Chicago. She doesn't even know that. She's making it sound like the only issues with ICE are happening in Minneapolis. Now, maybe they're not executing people and killing people all over the country, but that doesn't mean that things are all hunky-dory, working great. Ask Miss Martinez about that, who was shot 5 times in Chicago. We see these issues happening all over the country.
That's part of the Tom Holman agenda, is to let's just calm it down and let's forget about this.
Yeah.
Let's move on. People
Yeah.
are
And
dead.
then-
And by the way, the FBI told Minneapolis Division of Investigation that they're not going to share any information with them. No details, no evidence, nothing. That was yesterday.
And then the final thing I'll bring up, and listen, we can keep dissecting this interview. We have a lot of audio to play, and we have some calls we need to take, of course. But I ask people a very, very basic question, and I'm glad she was willing to admit that Trump lost. Okay, that's step number one.
That was one positive.
With your Trump sobriety, that's step number one. Step number two: if Trump doesn't do what he did, if Trump just concedes and does what every other president has done, does January 6th happen? Now, of course, any reasonable person, all due respect to Lydia, would say, of course not. The reason why all those people were there is they believed Trump when he said the election was stolen. That's why January 6th happened. That's why those people were there. How do we know that? Because almost all of them had the opportunity, who committed crimes, to defend themselves in a courtroom, and most of them, through their attorneys, said that. It wouldn't have happened if Trump conceded.
And it wasn't hypothetical. She said it was hypothetical.
She wouldn't answer that question.
It's factual. And she's supposed to use her critical thinking to take a side on the argument, but to say that it's a hypothetical, we all know that would have never happened if he didn't go down there and get them all ginned up and say, oh, by the way, I'll meet you there. Never made it. And we all know that's what happened.
So that was shocking. And then, of course, I brought up, she brings up Tim Walz saying, apparently, and I didn't know this, but I'm not saying she's lying. Apparently, Tim Walz at some point said F ICE. Okay. I would imagine he was acting on emotion. At the same time, if you're going to criticize Tim Walz for saying F ICE, where were you when Donald Trump threatened to hang and execute 6 elected Democrats? He just did that a month ago.
She had no answer.
Yeah, he just did that. And her only response is, well, it'd be nice if he got off of social media. Okay, Tim Walz said F ICE. What's worse? Because this is what pisses me off.
Yeah,
Tim
we
Walz,
said F ICE. You killed people.
Yeah. F ICE, okay, after what's going on in Minneapolis. And then you have the president of the United States who's saying that 6 elected officials should be hung for no reason other than the fact that they said, if you're, a man or woman in uniform, don't abide by an unlawful order, which is, by the way, good information.
That's the military code of justice. That's in the manual. They read the manual.
He says they should be hung. By the way, I didn't even get into the Epstein stuff.
Oh, I thought you were going to say about him being hung, but go ahead.
Well, I wanted to talk to her. Excuse me. I wanted to talk to her about the Epstein stuff, and by the way, this is also really important because if you do a Google search, which Numchuck just did to help me out here, apparently Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has never been directly quoted by saying F ICE.
I didn't think so. But I support his right, his First Amendment right to say that.
Yeah, but he didn't, according to. And by the way, I'd never heard him say that. So anyway,
it's not his character. I don't see Tim Walz.
So I'm sure
saying stuff like that.
I'm sure we will clip that interview up, and I'm sure that Lydia. Listen, I appreciate Lydia for coming on, as I appreciate anybody taking the time to come on the show that knows that they disagree with me to get into a good spirited debate. But I'm sure when we clip some of that interview with some of the false things that were said, it might not make her look good. And that's not my intention when I go into an interview, but I think she did it to herself. Anyway.
She's clearly a Trump mushroom gobbler.
Yeah, I think she's
well,
young.
and not to interrupt you, but on CNN, the debate with Abby Phillip was about Lydia saying that there were certain cultures that could not fit in America. So Abby asked her, what do you mean? And she goes, there's certain cultures that just shouldn't be here. So of course, Abby knows what she's talking about. And she goes, well, like what country? Like which country? And Lydia couldn't answer. And she goes, well, they just shouldn't be here. They can't do things our way. And I disagree, Brian. I think that any culture in the world could come here. And if they're peaceful and they're productive and they're good people, they can stay here. So I disagree with her.
That's a very racist and bigoted.
It was, yes, and that's what Abby pulled out of her.
And I certainly wouldn't tolerate that sort of language because I think it's wrong. All right, that entire interview is obviously up right now on my YouTube page.
Make comments
in its entirety, and we'll be putting up clips. But I do appreciate Lydia for taking the time to come on. She's welcome back on anytime. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into this Stephen Colbert. I know situation with Talarico. Very interesting situation where they did not air the interview, and I think they felt pressured. Not Colbert, but his bosses.
No, true. Colbert's a true American.
Yeah, they felt pressured into not playing it because they thought it might get Trump upset, and now they're saying, well, we just want to give people equal time. All right, well, guess who's one of Talarico's opponents? A woman who's done this show by the name of Jasmine Crockett. She had something to say about this too. We're going to play that audio for you and much more. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody.
All right, welcome back. Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Check out our good friends at mybookie.ag. Use the promo code LIMITS. You could get up to a $500 refund bet bonus with a one-time rollover. You go to my Facebook page. It's the Facebook fan page, which I think just passed 92,000 subs.
That was quick.
Where were we at last week?
Well, when you started, you were at 2,000.
Yeah.
And that was, what, 3 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, a few months ago. Yeah. So go to my Facebook page, the Pushing the Limits Facebook fan page, and sign up. They're awesome. They're our good friends at mybookie.ag, and check them out. We got Leonard Cardinale in studio today. A lot to discuss, a lot to talk about. Now, I had this guy, Talarico, out of Texas on my show. It was a different show 4 or 5 years ago. And I try not to talk too much about this because it wasn't the most pleasant times and work environment. But at the time, I was doing a show with a sidekick who was a right-wing lunatic. And after I interviewed Talarico, and of course I did the majority of the interview because I don't think my co-host at the time knew who this kid was. At the end of the interview, I didn't know a lot about him either, but at the end of the interview, I said, this kid Talarico is going to be a star. And I think one day he could be the president of the United States. I got that impression from him after a first conversation with him.
Like a prognosticator.
Really? Right. I said that about Adam Mockler 3 or 4 years ago, too, when I first talked to him. And I was right about him. I said he's going to be a star. And my buffoon co-host at the time said, he laughed at me. When you ask most Democrats who are some of the most rising stars within the party, Talarico is one of the top 3. So anyway, just wanted to get that out there in the open. So this is what Talarico had to say about this whole thing. And if you don't know the whole story, and Leonard, I know you do,
I know.
But Colbert has Talarico on, and they don't air it. And the reason why they don't air it is because pressure from the FCC. I believe it was pressure because the guy running the FCC is a Trumper, obviously, and I think they didn't want the interview to go, so they came up with wow, you got to give people equal time, and you got to give opponents equal time, and I think the company kind of caved because they pressured to the FCC. Well, here's what Talarico had to say because he was asked about this yesterday on MSNBC, and here's his response.
Speech in order to protect their own power and their own wealth. And that should be concerning to all of us, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're a progressive or conservative, because an attack on any one of our First Amendment rights is an attack on all of our First Amendment rights.
What do you make of that, Leonard, his response?
I think that he is very intelligent. I think he's an up-and-comer, maybe a little too mellow for my tastes. I think that when he gets to the primary, and especially if he's successful in the primary, that when we get down to brass tacks, he's going to have a plan to be fiery. Democrats are looking for fiery people.
Here's what I really think is admirable. I think, listen, very smart, very well spoken, but he appeals to those that are religious people. And he's on the left, and I think that's really important because you look at most people that are, whether you're evangelical or a lot of people on the right latch on to that religion, and I think Talarico brings in a base that could be religious but could support him. So anyway,
and he seems like a real Christian, which
he
a lot of the MAGAs do not.
Correct. So this is the funny part about this because the FCC was like, well, you got to give his opponents ample time. One of his opponents is a woman by the name of Jasmine Crockett, who's done this show before. We're going to get her on again. And Jasmine Crockett was asked about this, and she gave a very honest answer. Listen to what she had to say about this.
Did you have any issue when they were going to air the interview last night, when they promoted it, or when it was supposed to air, or did anyone from your campaign?
No, we didn't have an issue. I mean, we've never run into an issue with Colbert. And even as you talked about The View, supposedly this FCC complaint came about because I had more time than Mr. Talarico when I went on there after I declared my candidacy. So, listen, I will tell you that I have no love for Barry Weiss. I have no love for Brendan Carr whatsoever. But I do think that, as you also mentioned, Kimmel, it is important that we resist in this moment. And so there were a number of options that could be put on the table. And frankly, the Late Show decided that this was the option. And I think that it was a good strategy. I mean, look at what happened when they tried to censor CCOT. We found out that you could get a lot more views. So I think it probably gave my opponent the boost he was looking for. So I think it's probably better that he didn't get on and that they went straight to streaming, because we know that when we resist and when we know that it seems like they're trying to change the rules and bend the knee to this president, that it backfires in a historic fashion.
So I think Jasmine Crockett is 100% correct. And I think if you're Talarico, you want to talk about free advertising. I mean, getting his name out there in this
Jasmine
controversy.
Crockett.
Yeah, she's right, though. This helped Talarico in a lot of ways.
It could not have went better. He raised $2.1 million just in the next 24 hours after all that happened.
Yeah, and why? Same reason why Don Lemon's going to be more popular than ever, because of the Trump administration. So I love Jasmine Crockett. I love Talarico. I think they're both wonderful. And I think they're two very intelligent, well-spoken, and good for the country. And we'll see how this plays out.
Do you think we'll turn Texas blue? What do you think?
I think it's going to be really hard.
You're a prognosticator.
I think it's going to be really hard.
Really?
Yeah, because we have a lot of Matthew McConaughey's out there that claim they care about children.
All right,
And
all right.
Yeah, and then when it comes down to criticizing your governor, Governor Abbott, all due respect to Matthew McConaughey, but I did lose a lot of respect for him because he doesn't call out Republicans out there. He'll make generalizations. I think there's a lot of Texans out there that are sick of the Trump administration, but they're still not yet willing to vote for a Democrat. So I think it's going to be an uphill climb.
Yeah, Matthew loves children, but he's okay with a governor who cuts off SNAP benefits and cuts off health care and cuts off WIC program, but he's okay with that.
Exactly.
So hypocritical, Brian.
That's
really,
my point. That's
really
my point.
So hypocritical.
So speaking of hypocritical, Leonard, you being, not you, but in general, 25 years you being in law enforcement as a former lieutenant here in North Las Vegas, as you know, one mass shooting is one too many, right? And innocent people losing their lives, which sadly you've had to see on the job, is horrible.
I was working on 1 October.
I know, and I was just going to bring that up. The October 1 shooting, which is the largest mass shooting in American history, by the way, wasn't a trans person, wasn't a minority, was a white man who clearly lost his mind. But without getting too deep into that, we had this horrible situation in this mass shooting that took place in Rhode Island at a high school ice skating rink. A horrible tragedy. This person decided to just lose his mind and took out, sadly, his ex-wife, one of his kids, and several other members of his family.
So it's domestic related.
Yeah, domestic situation that I wish never happened. It's a tragic story, and it's horrible. But I want you to listen to how Fox is portraying this situation. Have a listen to this.
I want to read this to you. So this is one day, Jillian, before he opens fire here at this hockey game. He's defending online trans Congresswoman Sarah McBride. You know her. He wrote in part on X, "Don't be so butthurt over somebody's different than you then don't wonder why trans people go effing berserk." Investigators say this was a targeted attack. They know that for sure. Sources telling Fox it was a dispute within the family. That's why he showed up there with at least one weapon that led to this tragedy.
Okay, so there you go. They're portraying it and talking about the trans issue. And let me just give out the stat once again. And if you don't believe me, you can look it up yourself. In the last 10 years, dating back to 2015, 0.09% of all mass shootings are done by people that identify themselves as trans. But you'd never hear that from Gutfeld on Fox News. Listen to what he said about the shooter.
Thing when it was a mental illness married to a social contagion. That's all it was, and it killed people.
A mental illness
What does
married
that even
to a
mean?
social contagion, meaning talking about someone who is trans. Again, trans people are about 1%.
Is there a mass shooter that didn't suffer from social contagion?
Of course.
Is there any ever?
Obviously. See, this is why these people are.
He doesn't even know what he's saying.
These people are so ignorant. Okay, if you're willing to take another person's life, innocent life, it doesn't matter what's between your legs. Clearly, you're mentally ill.
You have to be a sociopath in order to commit those types of crime. There's no marry.
Of course.
There's no
But
casual
that's
relationship.
the way a non-hateful, bigoted person thinks. Now, let me give you another stat. About 1% of the people in this country identify as trans. 1%. Yet a sliver of 1%, again, 0.09%, are responsible for mass shootings. But when this thing happened the other day, I believe it was a few days ago, last week, the bottom line here is that it's a tragedy, and we should be thinking about the family but these people on the right that call themselves wholesome Christians, they're not doing that. If it's a young white kid in his 20s, straight white male,
Is being judgmental Christian?
straight white young male, it's thoughts and prayers, right? But in the rare, and it's extremely rare instance that it's someone that identifies as trans, then they just want to attack the trans community because these people are not serious.
Can I bring up a
people.
quick stat?
Yeah.
So people can go to factcheck.org, where a minimum of 4 victims, which qualifies for a mass shooting, 5,748 in the U.S. mass shootings by definition, only 5 confirmed transgender shooters.
Hence, right.
Okay,
correct.
so
0.09%.
Here's another stat: 99% of MAGAs blame the 1% of the
Right.
transgenders,
Right.
because for
It's
some
sick.
reason I think they have a sexuality issue. Brian, I don't understand. If somebody wants to go and they want to change from a male to a female or the opposite or whatever they want to do, What business is that of yours? And why should you judge them for that?
So obviously, I completely agree with you, and I'm glad you gave out those stats. I want to play you one more clip from these repulsive people on Fox. This guy Jones, who I think is one of the worst of them all, listen to what he says about trans people in general. I thought these people were for your Second Amendment right, I thought, but listen to what Jones said yesterday on national television. Listen to this.
It is so interesting to me for a movement that is always quick to talk about gun restrictions, that they have not been able to address this issue with moral clarity. If you're someone that just wants to wear a dress, no problems. If you are someone that just wants to identify as another sex, but you know deep down that you're not, but you just want to be called he or she, that's one thing. But if you, from a psychological standpoint, think that you are another sex, you should not have a gun. Something that has been diagnosed as gender dysphoria is a problem. And all of us know it. We all have to fill out the federal gun form that talks about mental. You should have to check that box. And it is because the politics surrounding the issue of not wanting to be offensive, we're not doing the right thing on this. And I'm a purist when it comes to people. I mean, I'm from Texas. We have constitutional carry. Everybody has a gun there. But the people that, again, I'm not talking about people that say they want to be transgender, dress a certain way, identify as a certain way. But if you mentally think you're someone that you're not, that has to be addressed.
Okay, so a lot of things to dissect there. Let me start by saying this. That is absurd. Why is it absurd? First of all, this guy Jones is not a doctor. Second of all, how would you separate those people? There are people that are in bodies that are not comfortable in their bodies that want to look like somebody else. So would we also go to plastic surgery?
What about pedophiles, Brian?
Yeah.
Pedophiles, if they have some kind of confusion in their mind about sexuality and young girls, should they not be now allowed to carry guns because they have a moral dilemma?
Well, here's why we define if you're a convicted felon, you are not allowed to purchase a weapon. And by the way, I agree with that. It should stay that way. Last I checked, if you're somebody that wants a surgery, a trans surgery, that shouldn't mean you don't have the right to defend yourself, and we should take away your constitutional rights.
So what are they? Are they for the Second Amendment or not? Because I can't tell.
It's insane.
I can't tell.
These people are insane. I mean, the way they talk about Alex Preddy, like somehow he was breaking the law because he was legally allowed to carry in that situation. By the way, never brandished the weapon. I don't understand these people. If it doesn't fit their narrative, it's sick. So this guy is basically saying that 1% of society should not be allowed to carry even though they've never committed a crime in their life or they're not a convicted felon. Like, this first of all, it's bigotry. Let's just call it for what it is. It's clear bigotry. I don't care whether you have a surgery or not. I can name you a lot of straight people in this country. I can name you a lot of people that have never had surgeries that shouldn't be carrying, okay? But yet, this guy wants to go on Fox News and say, if you want to have trans surgery because you're not comfortable in the body that you are in, that somehow means that you shouldn't be allowed to protect yourself and carry, is so beyond the pale, reprehensible, and despicable, I can't even begin to tell you.
Well, that one Fox News host, a female, the assistant attorney general, said after the shooting, said, if you bring a gun to a rally, I can guarantee you'll be arrested. So which one is it, Fox News? Which one is it? Is it Second Amendment for everyone, or is it really just Second Amendment for, those certain people?
Listen, these people have no credibility. And then to close this and to go back what I said, it's a horrible tragedy that took place at this skating rink. My understanding that there was a hero that attacked the shooter, and then the shooter took his own life with a second weapon that he had on his person. I commend that individual for doing that. We should be thankful that more people weren't injured. My thoughts and prayers are with the family members. And, of course, those two individuals, innocent individuals, lost their lives. It's a terrible story. But if you go on right-wing media, they'll be attacking trans people 24/7 because they're despicable. Now, Leonard, as you know, I'm not a very big fan of Uday and Kusei, also known as Eric and Don Trump Jr. They were.
My dad's getting mad. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Daddy. They were interviewed yesterday. And the reason why they were interviewed, well, a lot of different reasons, but they were asked about the money that the family has made and how they've been enriched because of their daddy becoming the president of the United States. Example, and people can look this up and fact check me if you would like. Donald Trump is 8 times richer today than he was back in 2016, and there's a reason for that.
He's raking it in.
Of course, and there's a lot of corruption. But Donald Trump's own kids and family members have greatly benefited off of their father's presidency as well. And I want you to listen to the way Uday and Kusei, also known as Eric and Don Jr., responded to this question. It is laughable. Have a listen to this.
Well, you know what the critics would say. They'd say that the credibility factor is the Trump name and the Trump White House, and that everyone, is here to curry favor.
I think, again, the great irony is they didn't give us much of a choice. When you had they created this monster. When you had every big bank in the world for doing nothing wrong, just based on the fact that we all wore a hat that said "Make America Great Again." My father happened to be running as a Republican, canceled us. I mean, I was getting these calls, 300 bank accounts, Capital One, in the middle of the night. These are commercial buildings, residential buildings, golf courses, are around the world. These aren't political entities, and they were pulling these accounts from us like we're absolute dogs. We couldn't pay our vendors, we couldn't pay employees. And so we said, listen, there has to be a better way.
They're used to being able to do that to people who have no ability to fight back.
So did they not give you guys a choice when Jared Kushner got $2.1 billion from the Saudis? Did they not give you a choice when you received a $400 million jet from Qatar? Did they not give you a choice when the Saudis allowed you to have a $5.5 billion resort now being built on their property? Did they not give you a choice when you guys have made billions of dollars in a crypto scandal scheme? Did they not give you a choice when you decided to, kidnap a president and then steal their oil for money? Did they not give you a choice when you pardoned somebody and then we learn a month or two later they buy into 80% of your crypto? Did they not give the Trump family a choice?
I can't believe they're complaining about anything because their corruption has paid off big time in the billions. And for the two of them to sit there and act like they're victims, it's just so, it's every accusation they make is an admission of guilt.
This is even funnier, though, Leonard. Listen to Eric Trump and Don Jr.
My dad's mad.
Listen to Don Jr. when he's continued to be pressed on the billions of dollars the family has made off the presidency. Donald Trump's response, Don Jr., listen to this.
About the World Liberty Corporation, which has been in the news, and there was this big Wall Street Journal report about the 49% stake that was sold to an Emirati royal family member after your father was elected president, raising questions about whether they were doing that so they could get access to AI chips.
A, my father has nothing to do with. B, it has nothing to do with AI chips. And C, we met in the Middle East the first time.
Yes.
There's not a person in that room, there's not a banker, there's not a fund manager that doesn't go to the Middle East and to the, whether the sovereign wealth funds of the world. They're some of the biggest investors in every fund in America. To critique the one here and not talk about the others would be nonsense. It's literally what they do. And so they have done that. They invested in it, and they've actually had already over a 4x return on their investment. It's a great investment and has nothing to do with the other. We've been dealing with the conflict of interest stuff for years. I mean, they tried all this nonsense the first time around. Frankly, it's gotten old. They were the ones that put us into this position by creating legislation to try to put us out of business. We just fought back. We weren't willing to sit in the corner, curl up in a ball and die like they would love us to do. That's not how we function. That's not how we operate. And you can see that whether it's my father or us, that's never going to happen. We're going to do what we need to do to fight back.
Right.
It's the greatest law of unintended consequences. If you look at what they tried to do when they threw my father off of Twitter, and they did the same to Don and myself and pretty much everybody else in our family. They took us off of Twitter. They took us off of Facebook. They took us off of Instagram. They took us off of YouTube. They took us off of Google. They skewed all the searches. They did everything they could to suppress. So guess what we did? We went out and we formed Truth Social. Then not too long after that, all the banks, they started canceling us left and right, every single one of them. Every single one of the big banks. They started canceling us. Guess what we did? We went out and we got into DeFi because we realized it was future finance. And the great irony is half of the very executives that called us back in those days to cancel us are actually in this room right now. It is a law of unintended consequences, and I think for a long time they fought it, and I think at this point they realize they can't fight it. The train has left the station. This is happening worldwide. The whole world is adopting crypto in a very, very big, fast manner, and they'd much rather be on the side of something that's clearly the future than be trying to fight it in perpetuity.
Well, I don't think the Democrats.
Yeah.
Bring it back now.
Yeah, the Democrats are not doing it. And then he goes again trying to promote his little crypto Ponzi scheme where they've literally made billions of dollars. And if Donald Trump never became president of the United States, this would not have happened.
That's what I was thinking. He's saying, well, they're targeting my dad. Your dad's the president of the United States. And by the way, it was about AI chips because they released AI chips to Saudi Arabia and China and other countries that had secret technology that no one else had. And the rumor is because Trump took some money from them for investment money, but he released AI chips that could cause probably a danger to the U.S. in the future. I think it's dangerous what he did.
Absolutely insane that Eric and Don Jr. are claiming that they're the victims here when they've enriched themselves billions of dollars. Billions, okay? Not millions. That'd be bad enough. Billions. And then the same people that say there's nothing to see here are the ones that had a problem with Hunter Biden getting $50,000 a month from Burisma, or the fact that Hunter Biden was selling some of his paintings for $5 or $10 grand. These people are sick. If you want to talk about evil corruption, Donald Trump and his family are going to go down as the most corrupt people in American history when it comes to the presidency.
Well, the banks bailed on them because of the fraud, because they couldn't get their money back. They couldn't make their money, so they dumped them. Yeah. It had nothing to do with politics or anything to do with the Trump family. They weren't paying their bills just like everybody else. Yeah. If you don't pay your bills, then the bank's gonna do something.
Yeah, it's beyond repulsive and disgusting, almost as repulsive and disgusting as if you had to spend a few minutes alone with Don Jr. or Eric Trump to begin with, or Donald Trump for that matter. But yeah, Eric and Don Jr. are not going to get away with this. We all know, and it's why they've pled the fifth. God knows how many times when it comes to their charities, for starters. Now, Jared Moskowitz made an appearance on Fox News Business earlier this morning. And in this soundbite, Maria Bartiromo, who is a Trump mushroom gobbler, lies multiple times. So, Leonard, here's what we're going to do. Now, I have it on paper, the actual lies. But I'm going to let this clip roll, and it is in regards to the Alex Preddy shooting. Mm-hmm. You being in law enforcement, you seeing this video, I want you to try to spot out the lies here of Maria Bartiromo, because there are several of them in this short soundbite that I'm going to play for you. Have a listen to this.
ICE, and the reason we now know this,
if you've got a protester that is armed with a gun on his belt, and that person is getting in the way of an ICE operator, you're going to see a reaction. You don't have that all the time. You don't have people getting in their faces when they are armed. That is irresponsible. Of course they're going to react.
You have a right to carry in this country, and he had a permit for that weapon. And so, this has been an interesting debate that Republicans are having, because all of a sudden, you don't have a right to carry if you go to a protest in this country. They didn't say
you don't have a right to carry, but you should not be carrying, showing that you're carrying a gun and getting in the way of an ICE operator.
Yeah, he wasn't getting in the way of an ICE operator. He was filming to the side, and ICE decided to interact with...
Did he throw something at their car and knock out the light?
Yeah, there's evidence. There's evidence of that, Maria. At the end of the day, if this was working so well, why did the president and Tom Homan pull out of Minnesota? It's because it's been an absolute and utter failure on behalf of ICE and behalf of DHS and behalf of Kristi Noem. She's more worried about where her blanket is than making sure that she's doing her job correctly and making sure that U.S. citizens in this country are safe, that they can protest safely, that ICE can do their job by enforcing the law against criminals and gang members, which is what the president told us. And so, look, this has been a failure. That's why they've pulled out, and that's why Kristi Noem should resign.
All right, so in that 1 minute or so sound clip, Leonard, Maria Bartiromo lies about the Alex Preddy shooting.
She did lie.
What did she lie about?
She said the gun was on his belt. That's not accurate.
Correct.
It was tucked in his pants in the back, and it was concealed.
Correct.
She also said that if you're armed, and I understand the Second Amendment right, but you should not be in those situations. There's nothing in the law. There's nothing that says in the Second Amendment or the First Amendment that you cannot be armed and concealed and go to a rally and just participate in the rally. And by the way, he wasn't interfering. What happened was, well, let me ask you, Brian, do you think just because they're ICE agents that 4 men can assault a woman and no one can intervene if she's being illegally assaulted? If she's being assaulted and you want to protect her, can you intervene even if they're ICE agents?
So I'll answer it by saying what I saw in the video. He was on the side of the street. He walked over to an ICE officer. One hand, he's trying to help a woman up. The other hand lightly grazed his shoulder, not to try to hurt the ICE officer, not to try to impede. For like a half a second, he puts his hand like this on the shoulder saying, hey, wait a second, let me help this woman up. And then he says, are you okay? That's not impeding, in my opinion. That's being a human being. If you see someone on the ground, you try to help them up.
Let me ask you, when Rodney King was assaulted,
yeah,
and the police were standing over him, beating him with batons,
right?
If somebody stepped in, just because they're police, are you saying that a citizen can't step in and say, you know, he's down, you got him, you're beating the life out of him, and try to protect that person?
I'll tell you, in certain situations, somebody might say to you, well, I wouldn't do that because I'd be afraid that I'd be harmed as well. But you never know how you're going to react in certain situations. You could be a hero. And obviously, that's why I call Alex Pretty a hero, okay? Because he died in the last moments of his life trying to help a complete stranger. To me, that's the definition of a hero. And I don't care whether a week or two earlier he kicked a vehicle. I don't care. What I care about is what happened in that moment, and Alex Pretty was thinking about that woman. Now, there are multiple lies. First of all, she's betraying the Second Amendment altogether. Bartiromo is...
Which one is it?
Literally...
Does Fox News support it or not?
They're literally... Okay, let's just go one by one here. Literally, she's betraying the Second Amendment. He was legally, and by the way, Jared Moskowitz, who I don't always agree with, is 100% correct here. He was legally allowed to carry, never brandished the weapon, and as you mentioned, it was not on his belt. So I agree with there. He lied about him. She lied about him showing the weapon. He never did that. Okay, that was also a lie. And she lied about him getting in the way, which we just described, of ICE. This is what far right-wingers do. They claim they care about the Second Amendment, but if it doesn't fit their narrative, which clearly it doesn't in this situation, what do? An anchor at Fox News Business is lying to the American people about what we all saw with our own eyes. I go back to Renee Good. I go to Alex Pretty. And what about this woman, Martinez, in Chicago, where the video completely shows a different story and lies being put forth by these agents? Blatant lies. I would call it attempted murder is what that was.
You know, Brian, when I was a sergeant and again when I was a lieutenant, I can't tell you how many dog piles, we call it a dog pile, you know, where the cop, I can't tell you how many of them I stepped in the middle of and said, that's enough. You got him. Yeah. And because, you know, the adrenaline pumps, but me as a supervisor, my job is to make sure that we enforce the law and use the amount of force, the minimum amount of force. Yeah. And I've stepped right in the middle of them. And some of the officers didn't like it, but you know what? Yeah. Once they're down and you got them, and then pulling your guns and shooting someone who's unarmed on the ground, on their knees, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, in closing, I'll say this. Maria Bartiromo is not a serious person. She has zero credibility, and she is your typical Trump mushroom.
Yeah, trying to get clicks.
Gobbler.
Yeah.
That's what she is. All right. So we have to have a little bit of fun here on the show. We've talked about a lot of very serious topics, of course, rightfully so. And we'll open up the phone lines here in a little bit, but we got to have a little fun now, okay? You want to talk about the ultimate cringe, and Kid Rock is now on the tour of, no, I didn't lip sync. No, the music wasn't synced, but I wasn't lip syncing properly. And then we learned that he pre-recorded this halftime show days earlier. It's so insane. So now he's on this, this tour of, hey, I'm really good, and this is the left attacking me.
No, he's not.
So the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services have just released this video. That's the two stars of the video are a shirtless Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and a shirtless Kid Rock. And it is beyond a bizarro world.
Do we have to see it?
They're going into, it's so cringe, but they're going into like these hot tubs, and you see Kid Rock on a bike, and you see it just, for whatever reason, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. goes into a hot tub wearing jeans. It's beyond bizarre and cringeworthy. But again, this is not a Saturday Night Live skit. This is the Department of Health and Human Services that have just released this video, and I want to play it for you, and then we'll comment on it. Here it is. I don't know what happened with our internet, but did it freeze again? That's good.
All the crackheads, the critics, the cynics.
All right. Well, you get the idea. I guess our internet isn't working again, so we can cut out of that. I wanted to play the entire clip, but unfortunately, it's not loading properly. But as you can see, maybe that's enough cringe.
I'm glad that we can't play the rest of the clip.
Yeah, maybe that's enough cringe for you to see.
Those guys are Delulu.
You get the idea. Okay, you get the idea, and it is cringeworthy to say the least. And you see a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and a Kid Rock with their shirts off. And they're Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who, by the way, who goes into a hot tub wearing your jeans? That's very strange to begin with. And like,
was there something like message there or something?
It was really strange. I don't know what's going on there. And somehow they think that this is going to help people. If anything, we're just laughing at it because it's so cringe and it's so weird. But again, the Department of Health and Human Services have officially put that video out. What do you?
Well, they would, obviously the Trump administration would rather have ass clowns like that showing themselves doing, I don't even know what they're working out, I guess, and have them, run departments and support him and have a voice in the world when clearly there's something very wrong. But it's about loyalty with Trump. It's all about loyalty. And we're going to see the loyalty test with Pam Bondi.
That is true.
We'll see if he stays loyal.
That was definitely cringeworthy. That entire video, extremely cringeworthy. All right, we're at that point of the show now where I want to take some phone calls. Obviously, we've talked about a lot of different issues on the show today. Had an interview that we started the show today with Lydia Monahan, who writes for the New York Post. You see her on CNN and Fox News all the time. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. I don't know. I don't think the interview made her look good. I tried to press her on a number of different issues. So we're talking a little bit about that.
I'm not biased either, and she did not look good. I'm objective about those things.
Well, looking good visually and looking good with what you sound like could be two completely different things. But she certainly.
I meant contextually.
Yes, contextually, I certainly agree with you. I do appreciate her coming on. So we're talking a little bit about that. We're talking about the Colbert situation as well.
There's some very negative people in the live chat. Maybe they'll call in.
There's a lot of Trump cowards out there that are not. They're a little afraid to call into a live political talk show. But if you'd like to call in, the number to call is 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you would like to be a part of the conversation, that number is 702-221-7283. Again, 702-221-SAVE. And we're also going to be in the YouTube Super Chat. So, Leonard, if you see any YouTube Super Chats that you'd like to read throughout this time where we're taking phone calls, please feel free to do so as well. All right, let's get right to the phone calls now. 702-221-7283. And let's start off with Brandon, who's first up on PTL. Hello, Brandon.
Yeah, hello?
Yes. Hello, Brandon.
Yeah. So I'm not sure why anybody's not saying anything about this, but this Rhode Island shooter, this guy was not a liberal. This guy was a far-right Nazi Trump supporter.
That's also true. No, I know. I saw the social media. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, they don't care about that.
You're right about that.
So, yeah, this guy was posting on how, on his Twitter, he was posting on how white people are so superior. He was posting about how Trump should get his own Rushmore.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Hey, Brandon, I got even something better for you. So yesterday on Laura Ingram's show, they were attacking this guy, right? Now, obviously, what he did is horrible. But what they didn't say on Laura Ingram's show is that this guy was a loyal fan of Laura Ingraham and retweeted and posted social media clips of Laura Ingraham. But Laura Ingraham, when talking about this guy, didn't mention that once. I find that quite interesting, don't you?
Yeah. And one thing is he was reposting Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he quoted Ernest Röhm, which was one of Hitler's biggest sidemen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my.
Yeah, I wonder where he's getting this stuff from. He certainly didn't get it from the left, but they'll claim this is leftist ideology and it's a trans issue. No, it's right-wing mushroom gobbling syndrome.
You know what, Brandon? This is just an example of them trying to blame the trans community when the person was clearly a sociopath. He was clearly out of his mind, and it was domestic related. And as you know, domestic violence is statistically one of the most violent calls that a police officer can go on. And it happens all over the country for all kinds of reasons and has nothing to do with being trans.
Yeah, well, and again, we talk about this. I talk about it. We talk about it all the time. Again, In the last 10 plus years, 0.09% of mass shootings have been portrayed by those who identify themselves as trans people. But these idiots on the right, they don't want to talk about, putting together some legislation on the books that maybe can stop crazy people from getting weapons. They don't want to talk about how people are obsessed with their weapons in this country. They want to talk about it like it's a trans issue, just like they want to talk about drag queen reading as if the sky is falling. And then they claim they care about all these pedos, but apparently no accountability.
Right. Everybody should be allowed to carry guns except for them, except for those people.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're saying.
It's just insane. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, that I just don't understand. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I even thought it was a liberal because they said trans, but I was like,
yeah, they have no idea.
Yeah, Nazi tattoo.
No, you're right.
Now people are saying, oh, it's just he was mentally deranged from him being trans. That's why he turned out like that.
Yeah, statistically, that's very unlikely. But more statistically accurate is that he had some internal mental issues and he couldn't deal with it. And he went to violence, and a lot of human beings become violent and kill people for whatever their psychological reason is.
If you're willing to take an innocent person's life, you're going to be mentally ill and there's something wrong with you, regardless of what surgery you had or what you identify as, which is completely irrelevant to this conversation. But they will continue to attack people, whether it be trans people, whether it be people who happen to be gay. Far rightists will go out there and make it sound like if you're an undocumented immigrant or if you're a brown person, they're going to kidnap your family. This is what the right does. They do it every day on TV. And I am sick and tired of it. It needs to stop. And the real statistics need to be brought out to people that might be ill-informed, which is, once again, the trans community brings up about 1% of America. For you MAGA supporters, I'll spell that out for you. That means about 1 out of every 100 people in this country identify as trans. Of all the mass shootings, and by the way, one mass shooting is one too many. They're all tragedies. Of all the mass shootings that have taken place in this country, transgenders make up about 0.09%. So I repeat this once again. This is not a trans issue, okay? This is an issue of the weapons that are being used and how these people have access to weapons. And the MAGA Republicans not only won't do anything about it, but they'll show up in the House chambers with AR-15 pins the following day. And guess what? I know one of those people who did that. The former Congressman George Santos. I've had private conversations with him, and he regrets wearing that pin in the House chambers. He regrets it. He knows that it was a mistake. But there are not many people in office today on the right that would admit that. Are there? 702-221-7283. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. And if you're a MAGA supporter, please feel free. If you're a MAGA supporter and you want to call into this show,
don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. I'll try to be as nice to you.
I'll be nice. I'll give my word. I'll be nice.
Good host, bad host.
Yeah.
I know.
Good cop, bad cop.
All these people.
Bad cop, worst cop.
It's so funny because every day we have these people, these trolls, as I like to call them, on social media. They'll call me a liar.
Brian's wrong. Brian is lying. Blah, 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 blah.
They'll say I'm a liar. They'll say I'm wrong. They'll say all these plethora of different things and defend their orange man, Donald Trump. But then when they have the opportunity to actually call into a live show like what we're doing right now, they're cowards.
Snowflakes.
702.
So I looked it up just so you know, and fear of calling into a radio show is telephobia.
We have a lot of
I looked it up.
MAGA telephobias out there. Yeah, but that
telephobians.
That must be what it is. They have telephobia, or maybe they have a phobia of not knowing what the hell they're talking about, and they're going to get embarrassed. All right, let's go to Larry. Larry is next up on PTL. What's up, Larry?
Hey, Brian, Leonard, good to hear from you.
Hey, Larry.
After good work.
Thank you.
I'm just amazed at the level of corruption, and thanks for bringing it out. But I think, as Henry Kissinger said, that power can be contagious.
We lost you a little bit there.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. I got you. Go ahead.
Just the level of corruption is a mind blower. And I'm still a registered Republican, but I think I'm going to lean more towards Brian and go more independent. But when I listen to the cabinet members, they're just such mushroom gobblers. I get a lot of laughs on that when I tell people, where'd you get that? I said, you got to listen to this guy on 1400 AM in Vegas. By the way, it's a beautiful day here with the snow-covered mountains here.
It is beautiful out there.
And but it's just appalling, you know. And thanks for bringing out the corruption. Now he wants to paint the planes and spend millions of dollars on the fleet of the government's planes. And this guy is so far out there.
You are. I could not agree with you more, my friend. And I do appreciate your call. And it's always great.
Yeah, Air Force One. He wants to paint it with Trump on it or something like that.
It's always great to hear from those Las Vegas locals out there. Obviously, we have listeners all over the country, all over the world, but it's really nice to get that from people. 702-221-7283. I want to go to David, I believe, next, right? David is next up on PTL. Hey, David, what's up?
Hey, thanks, Brian. This is a question mostly really for Leonard, but, obviously, Brian, feel free to weigh in. I'm curious as to your opinion, too. But, Leonard, earlier in this, like maybe 20, 30 minutes ago, I heard you say that you thought any culture at all, as long as they were being peaceful, should be, like any culture, should be allowed into the U.S. Am I correct on your assumption on that, or your stance on that?
Well, I said a little bit more than that. They have to be productive, good citizens, treat others with respect, and be here for the right reasons. Because if we decided that we did not want certain cultures back in the 1940s and 1950s, there would have been no one here to build the country. So I'm sure you may think of a culture that's unacceptable, but in general, yes, I believe all cultures should be allowed to come here and be productive.
So, okay. So like, for example, Muslims who believe that you should be allowed to stone gay people just for being
Hold on a second. Let's stop. Hold on. David, with respect, David, are you saying that every Muslim thinks that way?
No, of course not.
Okay, so why would you say Muslim? Okay, but that's not what you said. You generalized an entire religion, and you made the case that if you are Muslim, that means you want to stone people who are gay. I know plenty of Muslims myself.
Sure.
And while they don't agree with the lifestyle, they don't want to harm those individuals. So don't take an entire group of people and make a generalization.
Look, I'm not saying they're all like that.
Well, David,
right?
let me clarify, because it is in their religion. In the Islamic religion, it is, but it doesn't say stone gay people. It doesn't say stone people that you believe are evil. That's not what it says. What it says is that when people are unclean, when people commit atrocities, that you can publicly stone them as a punishment. But it's subjective.
Right. Well, let me ask David
it's subjective. It doesn't say anything about
David,
gay.
I want to ask you a question since we're on the topic of culture. And obviously, I disagree with anybody who thinks that way. What would you say the culture
thinks? What way?
What would you say about someone who thinks that a way of, if you disagree with a politician, that you think they should be hung? For example, a month and a half ago.
Trump.
Hold on. Yeah, let me just finish real quick here.
Okay, sure.
So there were a group of 6 Democrats, as you know, that said, don't abide by an order if it's an illegal or unlawful order. And because some people might disagree with that, which, by the way, I don't.
A culture.
Okay. Yeah. Donald Trump said that they should be executed. So if we're on the topic of culture, do you think that that's the person?
Should that culture be allowed to stay in America?
Should that culture be allowed to stay here, let alone the
president? Because they believe you should hang people for speaking the truth. Should they be allowed to stay?
Should they stay? Should Donald Trump be allowed to stay?
Well, I'll answer. I mean, if you're born in the country and you have terrible views, you can't just be kicked out and brought to
okay, but that's not your original. Now you're pivoting, David. That is not your original question. Yes, you just pivoted. Now you're talking about Americans who were born in America, which is completely different from people's culture that come here. And even if their culture is to stone people, what I said was if they come here and they obey the rules and they're productive and positive and they're good people, which means they would not stone anyone, then yes, they should stay.
That's fine.
It's not about their beliefs and their culture.
By the way, hold on. There's a difference. There's a difference between thinking something should happen and then actually following through on that, which would obviously be against the law. You support a man.
I get that. Let me just ask one question, if you don't mind. So just to be clear, Leonard, if somebody has those beliefs, but they're not going to act on them, such as, again, that you should be killed for being gay. As a woman, you shouldn't be allowed to have various rights, like in various Muslim countries. You think those people should be allowed into the country even if they believe them, but they won't act on them. You really think that that culture can properly immigrate into a Western country?
Okay, so that's that. What you're saying is very racist and very anti-religion. What I'm saying is they can have any culture that they want, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Africa, whether it's Australia. You can come here with your culture, okay, and your beliefs. But if you come here and you're a positive, productive, professional person who gets along with the neighbors and doesn't stone people,
I need to stop David again, and I'll explain why.
I only agreed to be nice.
I agree with Leonard. Okay, we just established in this conversation with David that not every Muslim thinks that way. There are extreme people.
I'm not saying they do.
Then stop taking an entire group of people and making an assumption about them.
Every Muslim. I'm saying the Muslims
So,
that do.
okay,
can I just say
hold on.
something?
Aren't there?
you think
So
those
should we?
people should
Okay,
be allowed in
okay.
Western countries?
Why do you think that white supremacists should be allowed in this country? I'm not saying every white person is a white supremacist, but shouldn't we?
If they come from South Africa and they're a white supremacist.
Okay, you want me to answer? Sure. If you're a foreigner and you have white supremacist views, I don't care if you're a productive member of society. No, you shouldn't be allowed into the country. But if you're born here and let's say you become a white supremacist, you shouldn't be kicked out because it's the country you're born in. Where are you going to kick
Okay,
out
well,
to?
let me ask. So if you're an
because you're born
Orthodox Jew and you believe that in your country, it's okay to sacrifice lambs and to put blood around the door frame of a house to protect people, you're saying that because that religion is so weird and would not be tolerated in America, that if they stop doing that, they should not be allowed to come here?
But Leonard, I think this is even more important. I agree with what you're saying, but this is even more important. David, there are a group of people on the right, like the Laura Loomers of the world and others, that are bigots, that think all Muslims should be deported. And that is why I keep trying to correct you, because I would hope you would agree with me that that is wrong and racist. You keep defining Muslims.
How's it racist?
Okay, let me explain. Let me explain. Let me explain to you, David, and let me answer your question. Sure. The fine definition of racism is taking an entire group of people and making assumptions about all those people, not some, all those people, because of either where they are from or what they look like. Laura Loomers of the world, and to an extent, I think you're doing this too, are taking an entire group of people and pinning them in one category. Okay, well, stop saying Muslims. Stop saying Muslims.
David, let me tell you
then
something.
Stop saying Muslims.
Hold
then
on.
correct yourself and stop saying Muslims. In this conversation, multiple times you've said Muslims. There are radical people in every religion. There are radical people with every skin color in the crayon book.
Exactly.
There are always going to be examples of extreme people, no matter what they look like. They could look like you.
By Leonard's own admission, they should be allowed into the country so long as they're productive
Okay,
members of
America,
society.
let me answer because you brought up my name. America has its own set of laws and rules and constitutional rights. So it doesn't matter what you believe when you're in your country. When you come to this country, if you start throwing rocks at people because they're gay, you're going to jail for battery with a deadly weapon or attempt murder.
But David,
you see, that's the difference with America.
Right.
When you're in America, we have rules and regulations. And what I'm saying is, if you want to bring your culture here, as long as you follow the law and follow the rules, come on in. We have rules to follow. And we have, by the way, we have ways for you to become a naturalized citizen.
I'll say this
not
in
illegal,
closing, David.
Not illegal immigrants.
David, I'll say this in closing. Okay, I do believe that America would be a much better place if we took an airplane and we put Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, that's not an argument.
Hold on, and Stephen Miller.
Okay,
just
sure.
an opinion. We took all these people who I think are all very, very bad people.
Who all have the same culture.
Yeah, they have the same culture. It's called white supremacy. I'll take
belief.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's your definition. I'm going to disagree with you. So all these Trump mushroom gobblers in the administration, if we put them all on a plane and deported them to Russia, and they were never allowed to come back, David, I think the world would be a much better place. So that's my definition of what I think we should do, David. You said in that phone call multiple times, as Leonard also pointed out, Muslims. Not every Muslim believes in what you just said.
He's definitely racist.
Those
I'm
are
sorry.
extreme circumstance, David. And for you to define that as
Or
all
religious
Muslims
bigot.
believing that way. I have friends of mine who are Muslim. I used to live with a great guy who is Muslim. I used to rent out, what's the word? If you look at 2 homes, you have a house and back. What is that called? What is it called? Yeah, a casino, whatever. Yeah. And he was the nicest possible. He was an infectious disease doctor. He moved to LA and they could not have been nicer people. And what you said, in my personal opinion, multiple times in that conversation, is the definition of racism. But I don't think this will shock a lot of people to know that you support Donald J. Trump. I appreciate your call, David.
And what
Thank
he
you.
said, can I just add, it's un-American. What he was saying is absolutely un-American.
Let's go to Democrat MAGA, who's next up on PTL. Hello, Democrat MAGA.
Oh, boy.
Hey, everybody. It's
Derek.
the one caller of all time calling to save the show. So I
Is his
wanted
name
to talk
Derek?
to Leonard specifically because
Yeah, they're
he's in
afraid.
law
Go ahead,
enforcement.
Derek.
And I brought this.
They're afraid to talk to me today.
No, I brought this up with Brian, and he didn't. His response was, "Yeah, what about the Epstein files?" So I'm asking you because I don't know the answer, Leonard. But based on the 2026 data, how come? What do you attribute that the 2025 murder rate dropped to the lowest level since 1900? And also, according to this right here, it said 43% decrease in carjackings and a 22% drop in gun assaults, even though no gun legislation was passed. So what are these historic crime numbers? What do you attribute that to?
I would say it starts with the local police, and it's really good policing and really good investigations by the sheriff's departments. As a matter of fact, the resolution rate in almost every state in the United States right now on homicides is way up. So they're resolving a lot of crimes as well. But this is not something that started recently. This is a trend that's been around for about 3 or 4 years. And it really is, I know you're not going to agree, but it really is not the federal, it's not the government, it's not any of that. It's the local police departments doing their job and doing it very well and finding ways to cut down on homicide.
So you don't think immigration borders shut down? You don't think National Guard stopping masks? You don't think stopping drugs coming in from this country? None of that contribute to.
Well, it doesn't actually matter what I believe. It doesn't matter what I believe. The statistics show that there's no correlation between the immigration and the thuggery with the masks and the not identifying themselves have cut down on anything. And matter of fact, the statistics show that it increases violence and has increased the murder rate because of the way that they're going about it.
So the murder rate dropped to the lowest level in 125 years. And you said now it's increasing because they're wearing masks.
No. What I'm saying is that there's no correlation. There's no what's a word he could understand. There's no casual relationship between the murder rates going down because ICE enforcement is really administrative. They're there to enforce customs and border rules. They're not there to look into fraud. They're not there to look into murder. They're not there. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you right now that there's no casual or specific or direct correlation between the ICE agents and what they're doing. And yes, they've raised a lot of violence. They've killed people. They've sprayed people right in the face. They've thrown women on the ground and shot them with no probable cause. And yes, they have increased the violence.
I'm not talking about ICE, but would you say Trump's doing a good job on crime then?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So last year for 2025, when he was president, it's a 125-year low. It has nothing to do with him, immigration, drugs, National Guard.
When you get rid of arms of the CIA that do secret undercover spy work in other countries, and you cut their budget so that out of 47 officers, there's only 4 left.
I'm so
and when
sick
you
of
cut
this.
the budget of FBI agents who are all over the world trying to catch people plotting against the U.S., when you cut their budget and you fire them,
I want to ask Democrat.
I know,
MAGA
but
question.
isn't
He doesn't know that. 'Cause he doesn't. No, he
common
can't.
sense.
No, Democrat. My turn now. You just said you think Donald Trump. Will you be quiet and stop interrupting?
Nobody
me,
brought up
okay?
Epstein files.
You're the one who brought up drugs. Are you even aware that Donald Trump is the guy who pardoned the man who brought in 400 tons of narcotics into this country? And you want to preach to us about how he's doing such a great job? Are you also aware, and you're probably ignorant to the fact, and it's very simple here, that most of the people that are bringing in illegal drugs into this country are coming from U.S. ports of entry and they're American citizens? Or are you too stupid to even know that? You have no idea what you're talking about. Are you aware of that?
On
Yes.
that.
Are you aware of that? Yes or no?
What? Tell me your source.
U.S. Border and Customs. U.S. Border and Customs. You freaking MAGA dope. That's what you are.
You're
You
telling me
MAGA
when
What do you
dope.
mean? Everybody knows that he pardoned the
Wait.
the
Hold
biggest
on,
drug dealer
hold on,
ever.
hold on.
Everyone knows that.
This is unbelievable. Hold on. I want to set the record straight here. You are not aware that the overwhelming majority of illegal drugs that are sent through into this country are not from undocumented immigrants, but U.S. citizens that are going through legal ports of entry. Are you not aware of that statistic? Yes or no? You're so stupid. You don't even know that, do you? You're so dumb.
Something
Why don't
like
you
one
do you get your
2%.
news from? Where do you get your news from, you racist? Where do you get your news from? Newsmax? OAN?
CBS.
What was on
No,
CBS?
something like 1
Why
to
don't you
2% of
answer
drugs
my
comes through the
question?
border.
Are you aware that most of the illegal drugs that are coming into this country, crossing the border, are from American citizens through legal
At the
ports
port,
of entry?
the port of entry.
Are you aware of that?
70-something
Answer the
percent.
question, yes or no.
So then how come crime?
Why do you keep
125 below?
asking? Why do you keep asking questions? Answer my question, you dope, you MAGA
I
fool.
don't even believe that's true.
Well, because you're an imbecile. Everybody, you can look that up if you don't believe me. You are a moron. You're trying to talk to us. And Leonard, go ahead and look that up.
I made a mistake, Brian. I thought he was going to come with an intelligent argument and that he practiced.
So
Look, which
this
thing?
guy's
Okay, so
entire
it's in excess
premise.
of 70%. 70%. Are you saying the drugs? 70% of drugs come in through the port of entries, and a lot of it is by Americans. Only 1 to 2%
correct
come over the border.
But
And
Leonard,
in Canada, it's less than 1%.
Leonard, he doesn't even know that. He doesn't know what you just said.
I think he's just stirring the
You're
pot.
trying
I
to
don't
make
know.
the case about Donald Trump, and we just embarrassed you because you're a clown. You're a Trump mushroom gobbling clown, and you're a waste of our time. MAGA dope. Have a nice day.
I hope he calls back, but if he's still listening, what I would like you to do is maybe learn your statistics, learn your history, your U.S. history, and the next time you call, be prepared with a lucid argument. Is that too much to ask?
They're not capable. The guy doesn't even know. He thinks that most of the drugs coming through this country are from undocumented immigrants.
And the murder rate is tied into local police. That's what he's talking about. It has nothing to do with the federal government and ICE. Nothing.
He's not aware of that. All right, let's go back to the call. 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Hannah and Mario, who are next up on PTL. Hello.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Leonard.
Hi, Hannah and Mario.
What's up?
I listen pretty regularly, so I thought I'd bring my husband on with me.
Cool.
I'd like to ask Democrat MAGA where he's getting his numbers from as well.
He's not.
It's a good question.
He's not. He's just making stuff up.
Well, I can think of a few things. Jesse Waters, Fox Noise, Matt Gaetz, OAN, maybe a little bit of Newsmax yesterday. Maybe he watched a little bit of that. Maybe Laura Ingraham, maybe Mark Levin, or maybe Clay Travis. I would say
the murder rate is down, but it's not for the reasons that he was saying.
No.
And there's no correlation between
way,
what he was saying and the murder rate being down.
And by the way, if the numbers don't look good, they just fire the people that put the numbers out. That's what the Trump
Like with the
administration does.
economy.
Yeah, it's such a joke.
I don't believe we
Such
added
a
130,000 jobs last month at all. I don't believe that for a second.
Did you see Greg Kelly, by the way, on Newsmax yesterday after the loss of Jesse Jackson? The despicable racist headlines that I posted on my social media. Anyway, that's another story, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, my dear. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm surprised he conveniently forgot while he was bringing up illegal drug smuggling that there has been illegal boat strikes.
That is also correct.
Yeah, striking boats that couldn't even reach the U.S. if they wanted to.
Brought to you by the guy who has a tattoo on him that says 100% white. Yeah, that would be the accused woman abuser himself, whose mother called him a woman abuser, Pete Hegseth. Pete KKK Hegseth.
They were blowing up boats that would have had to refuel 4 or 5 times in order to reach the shores of the United States of America. And they were blowing them out of the water. And then they were not releasing any information on who the people were or what kind of drugs they found. Is it just me?
Because they didn't find any.
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult to have a rational conversation with somebody who calls into this show and you're talking about drugs into this country and wants to blame it all on illegal immigration and doesn't even understand that the overwhelming majority is coming from citizens, American citizens, through legal ports of entry. You can Google that. It's a simple Google, and he doesn't even know the very basic facts. So, you know, it's almost
he just
impossible.
called in with a word salad of nonsensical stuff just to stir the pot. I think that's what he likes to do. He likes to get people upset. But thank you for the call.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Based on how he talks, I'm not surprised that he had drugs on the mind.
That's true. That's actually.
You think he was hitting the pipe a little bit earlier?
Thank you for the call, guys. I love it. Nice couple calling into PTL.
It was hitting the pipe.
I love PTL Nation. Thank you both very, very much. I appreciate you guys. I
Good
bet
call.
I bet your marriage is far superior to a contractual marriage of a woman by the name of Melania Trump and Donald Trump. 702-221-7283. Who we going to next year? Let's go to Brandon. Brandon is next up on PTL. Hello, Brandon.
Hey, Brian, Leonard, how are you guys?
Hi, Brandon.
What's up, Brandon?
You know, yesterday you had a caller call in who was talking about like economic numbers and prices being down. That really hit a nerve with me. The only price that you see down at the grocery store right now is the price of eggs. Other than that, the tariffs have jacked the prices up on everything: clothing, electronics, good coffee, for example. A can of coffee I used to buy was always like $8-9 or maybe $10. Now it's $31.99 at where I live.
So Brandon,
Brandon,
you're 100% correct. And if you recall, yesterday I pointed that out. And by the way, I wish that wasn't true. I wish you could call into the show and say, "Hey, man, everything's down. You know, I'm paying. Have you seen the price of meat?
Steaks.
It's like all-time
I was going to bring
high.
that up. Steaks. They're triple what they used to be.
If you want to buy a steak, good luck. That's why in Vegas
the same
now,
steak I used to buy for $8 is about $31 right now.
a couple friends of mine went to a what I thought was a reasonably priced steakhouse, and they paid $500 for two people with no alcohol. Two people went to a steakhouse dinner, $500.
And you know what, Brandon, if you don't mind me saying, the problem for the Republican Party is it's not about economics and statistics and what they come on TV and say and the price of eggs. They go shopping at the store. We all go shopping. And we all know what it costs, and we're all tired of the high prices. So that's a real problem in the midterms for the Republicans, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's always the McDonald's app.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because you look at they want the issue of like high prices, just like with healthcare. But once they actually take power, they don't want to do anything with it. They just like the border. And so now, like that's why the Republicans, I think, are going to get murdered in the midterms because they're not doing anything. They're making everything worse.
If we even have
the ICE stuff on top of it, Epstein and all the other stuff, it's not looking good for them. And that's like me, a former Republican. I guess I'm independent now or whatever, kind of like what Brian is, but it's too much.
Yeah, well, you know, we gotta get out there and vote. That's what we got to do, Brandon. And I do appreciate your call. Let's go, Brandon. I can say that now, and it has.
Let's go, Brandon.
That has nothing to do with Joe Biden, by the way. Okay, let's go, Brandon. I'm starting to really enjoy Brandon's phone calls, which is a good thing, by the way. 702-221-SAVE is the number to call, and again, that number if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-221-7283. Let's go to. Oh, we have a Leonard. You're going to love this. We have an Andrew Wilson fan. I believe. That's calling into the program right now.
Is he calling to invite me to debate him?
We have an Andrew Wilson fan. Nelson's calling in. He's a big Andrew Wilson fan. By the way, Andrew Wilson went on social media today, again claiming that there's nothing credible that Donald Trump essayed any children. Hello, Nelson.
Hey, what's good, man? My name is Nelson. Y'all remember me?
I mean,
What's
I did you just hear the last 15 seconds?
Is this Judd Nelson?
Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you said my name, man. You know, I'm a fan, man. But I'm also an Andrew Wilson fan too. You know.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not biased. I'm not biased at all.
I just made that clear about 30 seconds ago, so you don't have to repeat what I just
Okay,
said.
cool,
Go ahead.
man. Awesome. Great.
Does he, Nelson? Do you think Andrew Wilson's a good debater?
I think there's a lot of validity to what he says. Some of the things I disagree
Yeah, but
with,
that's not exactly saying you
All
think
right,
he's
hold
a
on,
good debater.
hold on.
I mean, saying somebody has a little validity, that's not
What?
exactly
No,
an
no, I said a lot
endorsement.
of validity,
Okay,
not a little bit.
without discussing abortion, which we disagree with, those are opinions, not facts. Give me something that he says that you think he's abundantly like when he talks about the Epstein files. Do you think he's right about that? When he calls every woman who's ever accused Donald Trump of assault effing B words, do you agree with that? You think he's right about that?
Well, I certainly don't agree with everything that he says.
I didn't.
I'm never going to agree
so-
with 100%.
Okay, so what do you agree with? So give me something.
But there is some validity. Basically,
What?
I guess what he's trying to imply is that you can't believe every woman because many women have tried to slander the names of many men.
Hold on.
Okay?
That's not what he said. He didn't say you can't believe
No,
everyone.
that's
Hold
his
on,
implication.
Nelson.
That's his
Nelson.
implication.
Nelson.
You can't believe every woman.
Nelson.
What's
Never.
up? Yeah, that's my name. My name is Nelson.
Then stop talking.
Half
Listen.
Nelson.
Nelson.
Full Nelson.
I have never said that you have to believe every single alleged victim that comes forward. The point that I was trying to make to him, which he's wrong about, is when you look at Donald Trump's history, when you look at all the women that have come forward, when you look at, according to the FBI, credible young girls that have come forward in the Epstein files, and we still haven't seen 3 million more files. When you look at his behavior, when you look at him bragging about grabbing women by the genitals, when you look at the way he's treated women in his life, and not just the comments he made, but the fact that he was Jeffrey Epstein's best friend for 10 years, when you look at how he's tried to do everything in his power to hide these files from coming out, there is a history of this man and how he's treated children and women. He bragged about going into teenage girls' locker rooms without their permission. Okay. There's a history there. And Andrew's statement to that is nothing to see here. There's no evidence. And he called every single person that's ever accused Donald Trump of any improprieties of assault effing B words.
And he talks about ethics and morals and Christianity.
It's wrong. By the way,
everything is ethics and morals and Christianity.
Yeah.
Which, how can you be moral if he's protecting an immoral person and immoral acts? How can he be an Orthodox Christian?
Right. Well,
that makes no sense.
I'm glad that Leonard brought that up.
Because that's all he talks about.
I'm glad that Leonard brought that up. Can you give me any evidence? Because he talks about Satan and heaven and hell. Can you give me any evidence that any of those three things exist? What's your evidence?
That hell exists.
Yeah, what's your evidence?
Really know.
You don't know
that there's no. Wait. What?
Yeah, give me evidence.
Go ahead,
I didn't ask you what you don't know. Give me the evidence, because he talks about Satan, heaven, and hell a lot. What are the? Can you give me one piece of evidence that he's ever shared?
Tell you what, when it comes to those things, we don't really know if that's specifically true.
Okay, hold on. Okay, thank you, Nelson, for hold on, Nelson. Hold on. I will, but this is the point that I was trying to make. You're right.
Sure,
we don't know for sure, but you see, when it comes to Andrew Wilson's faith, which he talks about, and it appears as though
he tries to shove it down everybody's throat,
and he lives his life based on something with no evidence to back up his faith. But then when it comes to all these women that have come forward that have made claims of abuse from Donald Trump, he wants direct evidence. But then when it comes to his own life and his own religion and talking about Satan and heaven and hell and God, he has literally no evidence to back up any of those beliefs. That is what we call, sir.
There is a little evidence, to be fair. We don't know if it's like compelling evidence.
Isn't that a hypocrite? Okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, you're right. There's no compelling evidence. Wouldn't you call that person a hypocrite? He bases his entire life based on, his religion, with no real evidence, no compelling evidence. Isn't that a hypocrite?
There's some validity to what he's saying. It depends what you're talking about.
Well, and let me ask you a question, Nelson, because when he debated Brian, they agreed that it was going to be about Trump and Trump's ethics and his morals. And all Andrew Wilson did was look up stuff on the internet while he was in the debate. And all he did was talk about ethics and morals and got off the subject. And he's trying to be a Christian and ram those morals down your throat. But he refused. He refused to talk about Donald Trump. He kept circling back to everything else, and he wouldn't answer the questions and he agreed to it. And he said Brian kept pivoting, but he didn't. Andrew Wilson kept pivoting because he didn't want to talk about Donald Trump.
And I'll even take it a step further. Hold on. I'll even take it a step further to what Leonard just said. He bases his entire ethics system on the tooth fairy. Even you admitted he has no compelling evidence that any of the stuff that he believes in exists. But yet, every time you have a debate with him, he wants to go to an ethical system and where he gets his ethics from, which is based on his religion, which is based on a fairy tale that even you admit has no compelling evidence, which makes him a moron. You are a fan of a moron.
Some compelling evidence. I said there's some evidence.
Give me some compelling evidence. Give me some compelling evidence that hell exists, of Satan exists.
Again, it's debatable.
No. Sure, give me some compelling evidence that Satan exists.
Yeah, I know, because it's up in the air for speculation. Like,
Give
for
me
example, when we die, there's a lot of people that claim there's a heaven and a hell.
You know why?
If you
Do
start-
you know why? Wait, no, you wait. No, you wait. No, you wait. No, you wait.
Chill.
No, you chill. No, pot him down. Pot him down. I will address that. After somebody's heart stops, it is medically proven that their brain is still working upwards of an hour, even more.
For at least 8 minutes.
8 minutes for sure. We know that for sure. That means that the brain can be dreaming. That means that the brain is still functioning. So I find it interesting that you people that are anti-abortion talk about how you want to talk about science and how you think that conception starts right. You know, the moment of conception is when life starts. You want to get scientific. But then when you start talking about when somebody is dead, oh, well, they were dead and then they came back. Yeah, because their brain is still working. What part of that do you not understand? Does that not make any sense to you, sir? Nelson, does that not make any sense?
Well, I mean, when it comes to abortion, I'm glad you mentioned the abortion argument.
Oh,
because
get off. Get it. You're killing me. Get off my show. 702-221-7283 is the number to call.
He should tell Andrew Wilson to call back and have a debate. He won't debate with me because I don't have enough followers, but
These
I would love to debate him.
These Andrew Wilson fans are some of the dumbest people I've ever spoke to in my life. Brian, you got cooked. You got cooked. And then they'll call you homophobic slurs.
Well, he's supposed to be an Orthodox Christian, and not to get in the weeds, but Orthodox Christianity believes in a lot of different things. And they believe in like hands-on healing and being filled with the Spirit and talking in tongues. And so I'm not saying that that's a bad religion, but that is what he says is shaping his ethics.
Are you saying, I'll give you somebody that talks in tongues. You ready for this? His name's Tom Homan.
We're certainly not going to give up on the mission.
You know when you can
we're drawing down, but by no means does that mean we got our asses whipped.
You know when you can tell when somebody is in really bad physical condition when they like you can tell like Donald Trump's obviously we know Donald Trump is morbidly obese. We know Tom Homan's not the front of Fitness magazine either. But the way Tom Homan talks, right? Well, we're very grateful for Christian Awful, and we're going to withdraw. Like I can't even understand what this fool is saying. $50,000 in a duffel
Yeah, what does
bag.
it say though that Trump gets all these different kinds of people? These RFK Juniors and these mumblers and bumblers and people with no experience as the Attorney General. What does it say?
Hi, I'm Tom Homan, and you hear them like breathing into the mic, like Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, God rest his soul. If you want to talk about hell, by the way, Rush Limbaugh, the way he talked into a microphone. Painkillers. Painkillers. That's Sandra Fluke. Like he sounds like vomit when he talks. Anyway.
I never took the money. I did nothing illegal.
$50,000 in a duffel bag. Isn't that a movie? Let's go to Christina. Christina is next on PTL. Hello, Christina. Hello.
Hi, Brian. It's my first time calling in. I've actually been watching you on TikTok for quite some time. I'm currently watching you on TikTok, so I had to turn down my my other phone.
Gotcha.
Couple of things that I'd like to bring up. I live in Michigan. I lived in Dearborn, Michigan for a hot minute. Muslims are great freaking people. They need to stop generalizing the whole freaking community. I'm getting sick of this. Just like with the Somalians, they're generalizing a whole community of people.
It's racism.
But it's not just that. I was born physically disabled. They generalize my people.
Yeah, Donald Trump made fun of people who have limited physical ability. He mocked them.
Oh, I know. I watched it and I was pissed.
I told you like okay, my last name is Shapiro, right? I think everybody knows what my religion is, and you know, a good friend of mine, I lived in his townhouse, and a Muslim man and a man of faith, but he never spoke negatively about anybody except Donald Trump. He did speak negatively about Trump, but you know, an infectious disease doctor that saves lives for a living, a good man. He never spoke negatively about anybody, and it's like. When somebody calls into the show, and we all know this, right? There are people all over the country that are MAGA supporters that think all Muslims should be deported. These are just horrible people.
Well, Christina you bring up a good point, Christina, because the Somalian community that they were picking on in Ohio, when you go around and speak to their neighbors, every one of them says they're great people, hardworking people, family people, respectful people. And that was the point that I was trying to make with, I don't even remember what the guy's name was earlier on the show. That's the point I was trying to make. And then he says, well, what if they throw rocks at gays? Okay, well, then you go to jail. Yeah. You know, in America, you can't do that. Yeah. That could be your culture, and that's fine, but you can't do it here.
Yeah, that's a crime.
Just two other things. First of all, I just want to tell you that I love the way you try to be nice. It's freaking hilarious. And also want to let you know that occasionally your callers on YouTube are very low. Their audio is very low. Well, they're very low too, but their audio is just a tidbit low. I just thought I'd let you know that.
Well, some might have to do with their cell phone too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And thank you for watching on TikTok. I try to go live on TikTok as much as I can. There are reasons why I don't go on TikTok regularly as much as I would like without getting into that conversation. But I appreciate your call, my dear. Thank you so much.
That was a good call.
Let's go to Shelly. Shelly is next up on PTL. Do we have any YouTube super chats, by the way?
There was one a while ago.
Okay. Well, if you can find any of those, we'll definitely do those as well. Hey, Shelly, what's up? Did we lose Shelly? Okay, we lost Shelly. Let's go to Dave, 702-221-7283. Hey, Dave, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, Brian? How you doing?
Good.
Taking my call.
Sure.
That same caller, that one that lost his job in Florida, he is something else from yesterday. He's the guy that got laid off from his job because there was no work. Maybe if he shuts his mouth, he might keep a job. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Well, he was saying he had 2 degrees and bachelor degrees in education. And then Brian's like, okay, well, what do you do for a living? Well, right now, I don't have a job. I don't believe he had
Right now,
degrees.
I watch Andrew Wilson 24/7.
I don't believe he had a job. I mean, I'm sorry, education.
Yeah.
And I think these people that call you is because they just want to stump you, and then that way they can say, "See, I got you.
It doesn't usually work out.
That's all they want to do.
Doesn't usually work out very well for them in the end. But you know, they try. They try. They try.
But my point I want to make that is so important to all you guys, have a great point, is that Talarico, correct?
Yeah.
Is that how I pronounce it correctly?
Yep.
He is so fantastic. He is amazing.
He's a good speaker.
He's got his YouTube channel. So when you get a chance to see it, he's really good. He was saying that instead of fighting, that's what Trump wants us to do. They just want to fight left. They want to fight left and right. Instead of fighting left and right, why don't we just fight from the top down? You know, that's what we should be doing, is fighting from the top down, because Trump loves it when we fight against each other, left and right. And he made a good point, but he's really good. You got to see his YouTube channel. That's all I want to.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Dave, and I can tell you that I interviewed again Talarico. I interviewed him about 5 years ago, and I didn't know who he was, and I interviewed him for the first time. And like I said, you can go back. It was a show I did called The Vegas Take, and it's up there on YouTube. And at the end of the interview, I said, "Man, this guy's got something. He's going places." He's
kind of, well, we'll see, because he's going to run into some turmoil if he starts putting his name out there like he is. And he seems like a quiet, religious, kind of a mellow guy. We'll see.
I want you to read YouTube chat if you can, the super chats. Leonard does a good job in doing that. Go ahead, Leonard.
All right. Lori, who's a regular contributor, said a father in Georgia is on trial right now for buying his 14-year-old a gun, who killed 4 people and injured others at the high school. And not only that, the child had been reported to say that he was going to shoot up the school. And the police did respond to the house.
Yeah.
And they had a talk with the dad and a talk with the son. So this was not someone that was just randomly bought the kid a gun. They knew the kid was a danger. And the question is, did the dad give him the gun back? Right? Am I on the right one?
Yeah, you're on the right one. There's another one. If you want to get to the next one.
This is Terrence Jones. Brian and Leonard, when Trump dies or goes to prison, whichever comes first, do y'all think the MAGA movement BS will die with him? Absolutely, because they're a cult, and when a cult has no leader, they don't know what direction to go, and no one's going to be able to pick up that slack.
I don't see JD Vance being the leader. Any others? 702-2217. Oh, we're running out of time here. Tomorrow on the show,
we tried.
You know him from Midas Touch. He's also running for office. The great Fred Wellman will be joining us on the program tomorrow. So that's certainly going to be a lot of fun. We have Destiny that's going to be joining us on Friday, and Warren Smith. I always get into good debates with Warren Smith, even though I certainly don't appreciate the way he titles certain YouTube videos about me. But I'll get into that with him on Friday. But he's going to be joining us Friday as well.
I don't think he's a very good debater. Can I say that?
I don't think so either. I think some of the things he says are a little bit disingenuous, particularly my opinions on Don Lemon. But anyway, we'll get to that. Leonard, it's always a pleasure having you.
It was fun. Thank you,
please
Brian,
tell
for
your
inviting
lovely
me.
wife I said hello.
No, Chuck.
I'm looking forward to some more lemons from your lemon tree.
I still got so many lemons. We've given away hundreds. I don't know why so many grew.
I used to have a lemon when I first drove out to Vegas. I first got out to Vegas 22 years ago. I used to drive a 1995 Volvo. That was a lemon, that's for sure. But anyway, good to see you, Leonard. As always, I appreciate
thanks for
you being
having
here. Go to my website, pushingthelimits.live. If you enjoy what I do and you want to support independent media, if you go to pushingthelimits.live, $5 donation, $10 donation, $20 donation. It could be a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Pushingthelimits.live, and you help support independent media and you help us keep the lights on. I would really appreciate that. And we'll be back at it same time, same place tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue